The galaxy believed we were infants. They never imagined we were the oldest beings watching from the shadows. The Valtari cruiser Ian Seeker pierced a veil of real space, its hull shimmering like oil on water. For 3 generations of their people, they had traveled, a desperate pilgrimage across the star-strewn darkness. Captain Loren Vex stood on the command deck, his chitinous plates reflecting the amber light of Saturn's rings. The sight was a celestial masterpiece, a breathtaking swirl of ice and rock. But it was not his destination. His multifaceted eyes, capable of perceiving a spectrum of light unknown to humanity, scanned the glowing tactical displays. Hope was a fragile, icy ember in his chest, a feeling nearly forgotten after so many dead ends. Report. His voice clicked, the sound carrying the weight of his rank and his dwindling time. Navigator Curie responded, her delicate fronds twitching over the smooth console interface. Scans confirm, Captain, the 3rd planetary body in the system. Primitive electromagnetic signatures saturate the atmosphere, radio waves, television broadcasts, rudimentary data networks. No detectable shield harmonics, no fleet presence in high orbit, no signs of active warp point manipulation. It reads as a pre-interstellar culture, perhaps on the cusp of its first extrasolar expedition. Loren felt a familiar, hollow pang of despair settle in his secondary stomach. Had their long, perilous journey been for nothing? The legend spoke of a wellspring, a world where biological essence was stable, pure, untouched by the great unraveling that afflicted his kind. This blue-green marble seemed ordinary. Set course, he commanded, his voice softer now. Perhaps their biochemistry holds the key we seek. If not their technology, plot a discrete approach vector. We will observe from the silent realm before making contact. Suddenly, the void itself screamed. There was no sound in the vacuum, of course, but to the ship's sensors and to the minds of the crew, it was a psychic screech of tortured physics. A blinding, silent flash erupted not from the planet, but from a seeming emptiness of the asteroid belt. It was a light that carried weight and malice, washing the bridge in a searing, actinic white that bypassed the view screen filters. The Ian Seeker groaned as if gripped in the fist of a cosmic giant, its hyper-advanced inertial dampeners straining. Alarms shrieked in a chorus of mechanical terror. Energy surge. Off the scale. Origin point is everywhere and nowhere. It's a targeted spatial distortion. Curie yelled, her fronds pulled tight against her skull in instinctive fear. Before Loren could order a retreat, a transmission sliced through the chaos. It was a voice cold, absolute, and layered with authority that resonated in the bones. Unidentified vessel, you have entered a protected sovereign zone. Power down all drive and weapon systems immediately. Prepare for automated docking and boarding procedures. Non-compliance will be met with terminal force. The universal translator struggled, parsing archaic, overlapping dialects that should not exist together. Bits of ancient Sumerian grammatical structures, classical Latin root words, and a mathematical syntax that hurt to process. Loren froze, his compound eyes widening. Impossible. Their stealth systems were a work of art, bending background radiation around the hull. They shouldn't have even registered on a magnetometer. Who were these people on the bridge of the Soul Defense Platform Aegis, hanging in geosynchronous orbit like a silent sentinel? Fleet Admiral Idris Vance watched the alien craft bloom into existence on her central holotank. The display rendered it in cool blues and greens, highlighting its exotic energy signatures. Years, decades of silent vigilance, of watching blips appear and disappear on the long-range scanners, had honed her instincts to a razor's edge. This one felt different. It felt desperate. Full analysis, people. I want to know what they had for breakfast, she commanded, her voice a low, calm contrast of the tension humming in the room. Lieutenant Cora Shun's fingers flew across her panel. Their technology is a walking paradox. Admiral, the spatial drive signature is advanced, a harmonic warp bubble type we've only theorized. But their sensor profile is naive, almost childish. They didn't ping a single one of our early warning buoys in the Kuiper Belt. They flew right through the Neptune grid like it wasn't there. It's as if they have the engine of a starship, but the situational awareness of a blind kitten. Dr. Eris Thorne, the station's chief xenologist, studied the fluctuating biosign data on a secondary screen. Physiological readings are off the charts for stress markers, Admiral. Not the controlled adrenaline of soldiers, but the raw, flailing terror of profound shock. This isn't a feint or a probe. They are genuinely, utterly surprised to see us. Vance nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving the hollow tank. The pieces were not adding up to a hostile invasion. They added up to a mistake, a potentially fatal one. Lock them down with the grappler fields. Dampen their drive core. Prepare a tactical boarding party from the Valkyrie squad. Let's go say hello and see what they want. But people, stay sharp. Paradoxes can be dangerous. Back aboard the Ian Seeker, Lauren could only watch in stunned, humiliated silence. From the starless black, shimmering bands of coherent force latched onto his ship's hull. Their touch ice cold on the external sensors. Their main drives sputtered and died. Then, in a flash of light that made his optic nerves ache, armored figures materialized directly on a command bridge. Teleportation? Precision intra-ship teleportation through unknown shielding? The energy and computation requirements were astronomical, the stuff of his people's most ambitious theoretical journals. The lead human retracted his helmet with a faint hiss, revealing a stern, weathered face etched with old scars and older wisdom. His eyes, a flinty gray, swept the bridge, missing nothing. I am Colonel Marcus Reese of Soul Defense. You are in breach of protected space. You will comply with all instructions. The translator conveyed the words and the unshakable certainty behind them. Lauren slowly, deliberately raised his four upper limbs, palms open. A universal gesture. He hoped. We seek no conflict. We are not invaders. My people are dying. Our very genetic code is unraveling. We came across the gulf between galaxies, seeking aid, seeking a legend. We meant no trespass. Colonel Reese's eyes narrowed a fraction, but a flicker of something, not pity, but sharp, professional curiosity, passed through them. He tapped the device on his wrist. A shimmering, honeycomb-patterned field hummed to life around the Valtari crew, containing them in a section of the bridge. A containment field, Curie murmured from beside Lauren, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. But the energy signature, it's layered. It reads as both a physical barrier and a neural dampener. This is not a single technology. As they were escorted to a waiting human shuttle, a vessel of sleek, gunmetal gray that had docked with a magnetic clang, Lauren's gaze was drawn to the main viewport. There, silhouetted against the vast blue curve of Earth, was a structure, a space station, but unlike any he had ever seen or imagined. It was a chaotic, beautiful, terrifying patchwork. Whole sections appeared cobbled together from raw asteroid or pockmarked and irregular. Others were smooth ceramite, glowing with soft internal light. And still others were made of material that seemed to bend and drink the sunlight, their edges blurred and non-Euclidean. It was architecture without a unifying principle, a physical manifestation of technological schizophrenia. They were taken to that station. Dr. Alara Vance, no relation to the Admiral, a coincidence that amused her, waited in a stark observation deck, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. First contact was the culmination of her life's work in Zen linguistics and cultural semiotics. The heavy doors slid open with a sigh. The Valtari entered, moving with a graceful, insectoid precision. And then she saw it. Their skin was not merely textured. It pulsed and flowed with complex bioluminescent patterns, swirls and dots and sudden flashes of color moving in waves across their forms. Fascinating, she breathed, forgetting herself for a moment. It's not just emotional leakage. The patterns are recursive grammatical. That's a full somatic language, operating in parallel with their spoken words. She caught a sharp look from the security detail and composed herself. Admiral Vance, who had arrived via separate lift, cut to the core. Your vessel possesses technology suggesting significant capability. A harmonic warp drive is no small feat, yet your approach to the system suggests profound ignorance. Explain this discrepancy. Lauren, drawing on deep reserves of diplomatic training, composed himself. He focused on keeping his own biolights in a calm, steady rhythm of respect. Your world, Admiral, Reads as pre-interstellar on every scan. Radio wave pollution, simple orbital satellites, no off-world infrastructure beyond the station. The question that burns in me is this. How do you possess the power to seize our ship from a void? To step onto our bridge as if distance is nothing? The mathematics do not reconcile. Idris Vance and Alara exchanged a glance. A silent conversation passing between them in a micro-expression. Our history, the Admiral began, choosing her words with the care of a bomb disposal expert, is complex, non-linear. We learned a fundamental lesson long ago that visibility in this cosmos often invites predation. It is safer to be overlooked. The meeting unfolded over the next hour, with Alara's instruments quietly recording every flicker of Valtari light speech. The story that emerged was one of quiet tragedy. The Valtari were suffering for what they called the silent tide, a creeping genetic decay that was causing sterility, memory loss, and cellular breakdown across their population. Their scientists had traced their own ancestral genome back through fossil records and ancient ruins, finding a point of perfect stability billions of years in the past. Legends hinted that a seed of that primordial, uncorrupted biology might have been preserved somewhere. Their long-range spectrography had found an anomaly on Earth, a biosphere with bizarrely resilient and ancient genetic foundation. They had come seeking a cure, a sample, anything to stop the fading of their light. The galaxy forgets its elders. We chose to let them. Just as Dr. Thorne was beginning to ask pointed questions about Valtari mitochondrial structures, the doors to the observation deck hissed open. A young, pale-faced technician from the sensorium burst in, barely remembering to salute. Admiral, priority alert from a helioscope array. Long-range quantum flux sensors, multiple massive contacts. They just appeared at the heliopause, right at the system's edge. No warp signature, no approach vector. It's like they dropped out of a fold in space itself. The central holotank flickered and updated. The serene image of the local solar system was suddenly blotted out by a swarm of angular, obsidian shapes. They moved with a horrible, perfect synchronicity, not like a fleet, but like a single organism made of 1,000 sharp black parts. They consumed the light around them, appearing as shifting patches of absolute nothingness against the starfield doctor. Thorne's face lost all its color. He pulled up a data stream on his wrist pad, comparing signatures. The Devourers, by the old records, their quantum resonance profile is a 97% match to fragmentary data in the Valtari logs we just received. Captain Vex, is this the presence that harries your people? Lauren felt a cold deeper than space flood his veins. Yes, they are the scourge. They follow decay. They follow desperation. They must have tracked our jump trail. We have led them to you. Admiral Vance's posture transformed. Every ounce of the thoughtful diplomat vanished, replaced by the unyielding geometry of a military commander. The change was instant and absolute. Then they have made their final mistake. This system is not theirs to take. All stations, condition crimson. I repeat, condition crimson. This is not a drill. Her voice echoed through the station's address system. Klaxons wailed, a deep, pulsating bass that vibrated in the teeth. The Valtari delegation watched, awestruck and horrified, as the humans around them transformed. Technicians shed lab coats to reveal uniforms beneath. Calm scientists became focused officers, their eyes glued to data feeds. The very station seemed to awaken, a deep, subaudible thrum rising to the deck plates, a sound of immense power generators spinning up from millennia-long sleep. Lauren turned to the Admiral, his bio-lights flashing in confused patterns. You have a standing protocol for this? You were expecting this. Idris Vance did not look away from the tactical feeds now swarming across every screen. Not them, specifically, but something, always something. The universe is rarely empty, Captain. It is merely patient. On the ancient, cratered surface of Moon, in a command center buried under 3 miles of lunar regolith, General O'Malley received the encrypted command stream. A light on his panel turned from amber to a solid emerald green. He allowed himself a tight, grim smile. Signal received. Aegis protocol is live. Wake the old guns. Bring the moon to life. Across the lunar surface, in plains and craters long marked on human charts as natural features. Massive armored panels slid back with a grinding roar that would be silenced in the vacuum. From these hidden silos, structures emerged. They were not guns in any conventional sense. They were colossal, barrel-like constructs of dull gray material that began to glow in internal light, as if drinking in the reflected sunlight and starlight, concentrating it into something potent and deadly that a voice crackled over the lunar command net. Quillen Lances 1 through 12 charged in a line general, targeting solutions locked to the lead Devourer cluster, awaiting final fire command. Back on the Aegis station, Kiri was monitoring the external sensor feeds. She gasped, a sound of pure scientific shock. The energy readings from that satellite, they're causing localized space-time curvature. You are not just firing a weapon. You are twisting the fabric of reality to aim it. The recoil alone, the harmonic backlash, you could fracture the local quantum foam. Dr. Alara Vance, who had been silent, offered a thin, knowing smile. We are aware of the physics, Navigator Kiri. We also know how to stitch it back together. We've had practice. The Devourer fleet, a swarm of silent, razor-edged shadows, surged inward from the edge of the system. They moved toward Earth with terrible, single-minded purpose. Admiral Vance did not wait for them to get closer. Helios Grid, activate. Target their nodal communication frequencies. I don't want them blind. I want them deaf and stupid. From a network of satellites disguised as ordinary solar collection platforms, a web of subtle, pinpoint energy beams lanced out. They did not strike holes. They struck the spaces between the Devourer's ships, targeting the invisible quantum entanglement that linked them. For a glorious, fleeting moment, the perfect swarm faltered. Ships on the edge of the formation stuttered, their movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. The single organism became a confused crowd. Now, General O'Malley, surgical strikes, carved the heart out of that formation. From the glowing barrels on the moon, 12 lines of pure, coherent white energy pierced the black. They were not beams, they were absence. Where they passed, space itself seemed to heal behind them, leaving no trace. Where they struck the lead Devourer vessels, the obsidian ships did not explode. They simply ceased to be. One moment, complex structures of unknown matter and energy. The next, a brief, expanding cloud of non-exotic particles. They were erased from reality that a cheer started in the Aegis command center, but died in the throat. The swarm, after a moment of stunned inertia, adapted. The remaining ships began to emit a counter-frequency, a screeching, discordant quantum pulse that unraveled the Helios Grid's web of interference. The synchronicities snapped back, tighter and angrier than before. Then, a third of the remaining force broke off in perfect unison. Their new trajectory was not for Earth, but for the rusty orb of Mars. They've detected the thermal and mass anomalies, Colonel Reese noted, watching the tactical split. The Ares installations. Let them, Vance said, her voice ice. A trap only works if the prey steps in. Colonel Evers, you are clear for ground defense. The stage is yours. Show them the hospitality of the Red Planet. On the dusty, cold plains of Mars, near the slopes of Olympus Mons, the ground erupted. Massive, camouflaged bunker doors, painted to look like ancient rock, swung open. From them poured a tide of war machines that defied Valtari classification. Walkers with 6 reverse-articulated legs moved with spider-like agility over the rough terrain. Low-slung tanks, their hulls shimmering with heat distortion fields, glided over the regolith. And among them moved figures in powered armor, leaping with the easy grace of Mars's low gravity. They met the descending Devourer landing pods not with a wall of defense, but with a swirling, violent dance of annihilation in the crimson dust. Back in orbit, observing through the Aegis sensors, Lauren witnessed the terrifying, beautiful adaptability of humanity. They did not fight with simple, overwhelming brute force. Though they possessed it, they fought with a deep, ingrained cunning that spoke of a history written in blood and ingenuity. They used the Devourer's own quantum-linked tactics against them, seeding the local data sphere with false gravitational signatures that lured clusters into kill zones. They used the Martian dust storms, amplifying them with sonic projectors to blind and scatter the invading ground forces. They fought the environment, the enemy, and the physics of the battle itself, all at once. Yet, the enemy's numbers were vast, and their mind was singular. While the human forces were engaged in a dozen running battles across Mars and the orbital lanes, a single, massive Devourer capital ship, shaped like a twisted black crystal spear, used the chaos as a screen. It powered through a gap in the defensive grid, its forward array glowing with a sickly violet light. The targeting solution was calculated cold and aimed directly at Earth's most populated arcology sprawl, a coastal megacity of 50 million souls. Intercept trajectories failed. It will penetrate the planetary shield layer in 15 seconds. Lieutenant Shin cried, despair cracking her professional veneer. Admiral Vance closed her eyes for a single measure heartbeat. When they opened, there was no fear, only a terrible, absolute finality. Override all safeties. Activate primary planetary defense. Initiate Gaia's Aegis. Ilara, who had been monitoring the biological and historical databases, grabbed her aunt's arm. Idris, we've never initiated at this scale. Not since the Second Solar War. The tectonic feedback alone could trigger. The risk is calculated, Vance interrupted, her voice allowing no argument. And it is less than the risk of losing that city. Do it. Authorization Vance 79 or Omega. Across the face of Earth in mountain ranges, deep ocean trenches, and ancient bedrock plains, formations long studied by geologists as natural curiosities began to glow. The Nazca lines in South America burned with a soft blue light. The concentric rings of a crater in Africa pulsed like a heartbeat. The very ionosphere above the planet shimmered, bending and concentrating into a glowing, hexagonal shield of impossible density that materialized 100 kilometers above the targeted city. The Devourer's annihilation beam, a column of violent purple energy that could core a continent, struck the shield and dissipated. It was not blocked. It was absorbed. The energy siphoned away into the planet's own magnetic field and dissipated harmlessly across the global aurora. Then the shield, Gaia's Aegis, struck back. It was not a human action. It was a reactive immune response of a living world. Tendrils of raw planetary energy, like lightning given consciousness in solid form, lashed up from the shield and speared the Devourer capital ship. They did not blast it apart. They unraveled it, peeling back layer after layer of its exotic matter, ripping it apart molecule by molecule, bite by bite, in a silent, cosmic display of absolute superiority. The silence that followed in the Aegis Command Center was deafening. On the screens, the remaining Devourer ships, suddenly bereft of the central controlling intelligence, became inert, then began to drift. Slowly, as if awakening from a dream, they power up their drives and, one by one, vanish into jump space, fleeing back into the dark from whence they came. The battle was over. In the sudden, ringing quiet, Lauren turned to face Admiral Idris Vance. The human commander looked tired, the weight of centuries seeming to press down on her in that moment. Your world, Lauren began, his voice hushed with a new kind of awe, one mixed with fear. It is not just a planet. It is a fortress, a living, breathing weapon, the ultimate defense. How long? How long have you been this? Idris Vance did not answer immediately. She simply gestured for him and his crew to follow. She led them deep into the heart of the Aegis station, to a secluded chamber behind 3 layers of biometric security. The walls were plain gray metal. Then, at her command, they became a vast, 3-dimensional star map. But this was no simple chart. It was a history. Stars were born, flared, and died in fast-forward. Nebulae coalesced and dissolved. And in the flow, they saw images. They saw dinosaurs, yes. But then they saw humans in silvery suits walking on worlds that were now only asteroidal debris. They saw vast, flower-shaped ships battling entities of pure shadow in the hearts of nebulae. They saw human ambassadors placing glowing stones on pedestals before fledgling, amphibious races on ocean worlds. "We are ancient, Captain Vex," Van said, her voice echoing softly in the chamber. "Older than the carbon-dated ruins your archaeologists dig up on dead moons. We have seen cycles of galactic civilization rise, shine with brief brilliance, and fall into silent ash. We watched, we learned, and eventually we withdrew. We hid the true extent of our cities, our ships, our history. We built the myth of a young Earth. Because we learned the oldest lesson of all. Ultimate power does not bring safety. It either attracts ultimate destruction or corrupts the holder absolutely. We chose anonymity. Dr. Alara Van stepped forward, her face illuminated by the light of a long-dead star on the map, the silent tide afflicting your people. It is not a natural evolutionary disease. It is a weapon, a bio-quantum weapon deployed over 80,000 years ago against a species called a Cthar, who reached for galactic dominion too fast, with too much arrogance. We fought in that war. We helped deploy the weapon to stop a tyrant. The Cthar are gone, but the weapon, it seems, lingered, mutated, found a new host in your genetic line. We have the original counteragent. We have always had it. Lauren felt the universe spin around him. The ground of his understanding fell away. They were not petitioners before a young, promising race. They were patients arriving by fate or design at the office of the galaxy's oldest, most secretive physicians. The healers who had written the medical text before his species had learned to write it all. Why, he whispered, the question encompassing everything. Why hide? And why help us? Because you found us, Admiral Van said. Not our cities or our warships, but us, the quiet people on the blue world. And because, when faced with your desperation, you chose to ask for help. You chose to offer your story, your vulnerability. You did not try to take what you needed. That choice, Captain, that moment of humility in the face of the unknown, is the test. It is the single non-negotiable requirement every species must pass at our doorstep. Age is not weakness. It is patience, waiting for the right moment to act. She extended her hand then, not in a simple human greeting, but in an offer, a partnership. So, shall we begin? Not as saviors and supplicants, not as elders and children, but as partners. Your people have resilience we have forgotten. We have knowledge you desperately need. The galaxy is stirring from a long, quiet age. New lights are kindling in the dark. It will need guides who remember the old paths. It will need guardians who understand the price of power. Lauren looked at Kiri, whose fronds were trembling with a hope so fierce it was painful. He looked at the other members of his crew, their bio-lights shimmering in patterns of awe and dawning joy. He looked at the humans, Admiral Vance with her weary wisdom, Dr. Alara with her fierce curiosity, Colonel Reese with his unwavering strength. Finally, he looked at the central display, which now showed a real-time view of the blue-green world below. Clouds swirling over its vast oceans and continents, a world brimming with secrets older than the very stars. The path forward was no longer a desperate, blind search for a cure in the dark. It was the first deliberate step onto a cosmic stage they never knew existed, illuminated by a light they hadn't known was watching them all along. And the elders, after an epoch of silence, were finally ready to teach. Hey there, hope this story has captured your imagination. If it did, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel Winds of Thought. It truly helps us grow and bring you more tales from the infinite cosmos. Thanks for watching.